Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the How to Be Rich podcast, rich in health, wealth, and everything else dealing with the self. My name is Jason Thomas, and this is Boss Talk with Walter Trudnow. How you doing today, bro?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah, so this is a new segment that we're going to be doing once a week, just me and you talking about Boss Talk.
Boss activities. Talking about current events, talking about money, talking about ways people can become their own boss.
And everything else.
Hopefully people get value from it. So I'm
100%.
very excited.
Yeah, man. So let's get right into it.
Sir.
So, bro, I have a quote to tell you. This has been resonating with me as of recent. A mountain's peak is measured from its lowest point. And I think that just describes how, you know, your lowest points define your highest heights. You know what I mean?
100%. And that's really how I define success as well, you know? I mean, the whole point of that quote is to measure success based on where you came from. And I think of like people like Donald Trump or people like born into wealth. Like he was born a billionaire pretty much already, right? With his dad. I mean,
Basically.
people know his dad was pretty much a self-made real estate mogul from New York City.
Yep.
And he said he got $1 million. He probably got a lot more than that. And pretty much like he still did good with it, right? But if you're measuring him from where he started to where he got to, I think there's a lot of people that like started from like the bottom and actually made something for themselves. They might not be a billionaire, but in terms of that measurement, they had more success.
Exactly.
100%.
And even with like Elon Musk, like people complain all the time. Like I keep seeing TikToks. Oh, his family was rich because they had like some gem mines that worth like fucking $3 million or some shit.
Really?
But even then, like his net worth is what, 200 billion?
Yeah.
The difference between a million and a billion.
Right.
In order to get, I'm gonna say this. I probably said this before, but I'm gonna say it again. In order to get $1 million, that would be getting $1,000 every single day for about 2.7 years. But to get $1 billion, that would be getting $1,000 every day for over 2,700 and something years.
Wow. I didn't know that fact. Yeah, that's crazy. And I think, you know, he was a kind of individual. Obviously, his upbringing played a big role into who he was. But he's just wired different, right? I mean, he was going to do great things regardless of his, you know, socioeconomic beginnings, right?
Right.
I think for sure.
Yeah, and I keep seeing some stuff too where it's like people say he does have a high IQ, but he has a low like EQ, which is like emotional
Intelligence.
Right, basically.
Yeah, I think he's a, you know, somewhat autistic probably. A little bit.
Well,
I think so, seriously, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because like there's like the smart autistic.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm
I mean,
not-
I think you look at him, he did a little bit of a podcast tour. I don't know if you saw that. He was with Nelk for a little bit. And
Yep.
yeah, I think just his conversational skills, it was a little awkward. Even Joe Rogan talked about, you know, he was a hard guy to interview for sure, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he does kind of talk like weird.
For sure. No, I think, but you know, a lot of great people. And I saw this somewhere else. I don't know where it was exactly, but they're talking about how a lot of super rich people are really fucking weird. You know,
Oh,
you think
100%.
of like Mark Zuckerberg or like billionaires or super successful people.
Yeah.
A lot of them just are weird guys, you know, and that's sometimes what it takes to be super obsessed with like a certain thing to create large output.
Yeah, even in like chess, like we've been playing a lot of chess recently. You look at Magnus Carlsen, bro, definitely got some tits.
Dude, even him, I think he's better than most of them, right? He seems, I mean, obviously he's the best one ever, pretty much. He seems more normal than some of the other chess guys. I've seen other chess
Definitely
people.
got a little bit that.
Oh,
that
yeah.
tis
Well,
stick,
again,
you know what I'm saying?
He's a unique individual, 100%. 100%. But I think compared to other people, I mean, he seems more normal than others.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
There's
even him.
definitely levels
Oh, yeah.
to it. You
But,
know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean,
That goes back to it, too. I was thinking about this recently and what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And a lot of people think you need to be really smart to be an entrepreneur or be really high IQ or think different. Some of the most rich people I know, personally, they don't strike me as smart people at all. Right? Smart has never really been an attribute that I've seen from high net worth individuals or business owners. I've never got that impression. I mean, there's even a stigma out there that the C students, the B students work for the C students and the A students work for the B students, right?
Facts.
And I think it comes down to is the one trait I saw over all entrepreneurs is they like to take risks. They're courageous, right? And those are the people that are going to take the risk to become a business owner because you have to be a risky, hard-headed guy or girl to start a business, right? Just because of the numbers.
100%. Would you say you were always meant to be an entrepreneur? Do you feel like you were a born entrepreneur?
I think to a certain degree, yes. I think there's obviously environmental factors as well, but I think one of the biggest reasons I want to become an entrepreneur is I didn't like authority. I don't like having a boss.
Thanks.
I've always, since I was a kid with teachers, I didn't like people telling me what to do. I've never been good with that. I've never responded well to do this, or even my parents, argue with my parents, do this, or any authority at all. Like, I feel like if someone told me to do something, it would make me want to just do it less. Like, I just,
100%.
having authority over me is something I've always struggled with. And I think that's something that you not struggle with, but you hate more than even me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like, definitely. Even in, like high school. Like, you
yeah.
probably saw this shit firsthand, bro. It's
Yeah,
just
100%.
like, dude, I, like, no respect, just like, I'm not going to pay attention to the class to some teachers who don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
No, you really did not give a fuck at, like, the last year of high school.
Yeah. I mean, everyone kind of senior slides a little bit, but, yeah, I took that shit to the next level.
For sure.
But
I think that's a trait of entrepreneurship. But going back to it, I know a lot of super rich people that I would not consider smart at all, right? And I think when you see like the super rich people, right, the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezos, the Mark Zuckerberg, that's where you get the combination of high risk taker, high entrepreneurial spirit, and super intelligence, right? When you get both of those in one room together, that's where you see like the against the ordinary of like super entrepreneur, 100%. Right? Multi 100 billionaire.
And Magnus Carlsen, the #1 ranked chess player in the world, said that the thing that allows him to compete at such a high level is, one, his ability to concentrate on one thing for an extended period of time, and also to not get bored. So I think with that one thing. So with all the hyper successful individuals out here, I feel like it's just that their ability to just lock in and just fucking continue to grind on one thing
100%.
for an extended period of time allows them to fucking excel, like, and be the best in that specific category.
Sure. And that's interesting you say that, because I saw this thing as well that's actually a male dominated trait, right? A lot of people talk about like the patriarchy and why are only super billionaires or majority of super billionaires male. It's because that men have a higher tendency of concentrating on one thing, getting super specialized and obsessed, because you have to be obsessed to be a billionaire
100%.
in one field, right? So that's obviously that correlates in the long term to building massive companies and being the best in your field. So.
Why do you think that's a male trait? Because I agree with you. That is 100% a male trait. But why do you think biologically that's like how it's evolved to?
Right. Honestly, I don't exactly know the answer, but I've heard that this is just a theory, I think, but I heard that because men used to do the hunting, right? In order to hunt something, you have to be absolutely locked in on the animal and super focused, right?
Type shit.
Versus women. I mean, long term, I'm talking about thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was the women that took care of the kids, right? And multitasking with kids in a family, there's a lot more different needs. And this is just a theory, right? But there's a lot more different needs that they need to multitask on versus hunting.
Just fucking
antelope. Locked in on a fucking buffalo that you're like about to fucking slay, right?
Literally.
So yeah, I think that's definitely probably a factor, like biologically, but there's other as well. So.
100%. Bro, I heard this quote from the anime Naruto. Everyone's heard of Naruto. But the quote goes like this: hard work is worthless for those who don't believe in themselves. And I feel like today that should resonate with a lot of people, because a lot of people work hard but aren't super successful. And I think those people aren't super successful because they're not working in hard at things that are beyond what they even imagine that they can do.
Right. And I'll go even one step farther. I think everybody works hard. Right? The minimum wage employee hustling their ass at McDonald's making $11 an hour.
Right.
They're hustling.
Day,
they're working hard. They're probably working more, labor-ish jobs than people at the top, right?
Right.
But it really all depends on what you do, And people like to flex how hard they work, right? I heard this Alex Hormozy quote recently. If you don't follow him, you really should. Business guy. He was talking about it's not a flex of how hard you work. It's how much production comes out the other end, right? The smarter you work, the less effort is needed to create a big output. Right. And that's the biggest thing. And going back to people don't believe in themselves, I talk about, my TikTok channel is Wealth Walk, right? I talk about 5 steps to become financially free.
Yep.
The first one is changing your mindset.
Facts.
Most people don't believe they can get rich. Most people don't even think it's out there. Most people think billionaires are evil. They got lucky. They got handed to them.
Yep.
Or, even millionaires, right?
And they just steal from like the fucking poor and shit.
Right. Yeah,
literally.
of course. And most people think that, and they don't believe in themselves enough to even try.
100%.
Right? Because trying is just such a big factor in your output and your success, they don't even believe enough that it's possible to even try out there, right? So that's what's holding most people back. 90% of people won't get past that first step of trying because of what's in their head. They don't believe in themselves.
Oh, for sure.
So it's really insane.
When do you think your mindset kind of started to shift? Because I would say mine shifted the day I finished Rich Dad Poor Dad.
100%. I remember I saw a clip on Instagram. It was Robert Kiyosaki on a podcast, and it was just super intriguing. He was talking about the banking system and how the dollar is not tied to anything
I know exactly
anymore.
the clip you're
I
talking
remember
about.
I sent it to you.
You sent it to me. I sent it to my dad.
Yeah.
My dad, bro, his mindset changed, literally.
Yeah, and I just saw that, and I just thought it was really interesting, and I said, oh, I've heard of this guy. I've heard he's written Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And we both got the book. We both read it that summer.
Yep.
And it definitely changed my mindset for sure. But I think also, I was fortunate enough that my dad's an entrepreneur. So growing up in a household where, obviously he was doing that, and then he was supporting me in terms of like teaching me some stuff about it, and all that. So I think I, was blessed in that manner.
Bro, the whole reason I even got invested in the stocks in the first place was because of you. And you had a custodial account, and you had like $1,000 in that account. And I remember being like, bro, I had Google searched this, and it said you can't invest in stocks until you're 18. So the whole reason I made like hundreds of thousands of dollars was because of your ass.
Yeah. And
Literally.
I'll bring that back to my dad too. My dad, he was like, oh, I should set you up with the E-Trade account. I put $500 in. He was like, I'll give you a little early, Christmas present. He put $500 in, right? And he pretty much told me, right, like, even if it goes to zero, even if you fuck it up, I just want you to learn, right? And that's why, like, people have told me before, because I got, a little bit of money from, my lawn care business and other businesses I've started, right? And people have given me criticisms of daddy's money, right?
100%.
Oh, daddy's money. And honestly, it's never bothered me. To be honest, besides that, my father's never given me any money, or my family's never given me any money to start a business. But do you know what? The lessons that my dad taught me, showing me that it's possible and starting a business himself and inspiring me, investing in, giving me a family to grow up in, a good upbringing, and just teaching me everything he knows. Everything I have, all the success I have is due to my father. 100%. I completely admit that. If he didn't raise me right and teach me the things I needed to know, I wouldn't be in the place I am right now.
I agree with that.
So I 100%,
I agree with that. And to the people who say like, oh, you had daddy's money, da-da-da-da-da, it's like, bro, you can always take it a step further. Like even the people who are saying that, you can take it down to, oh, what about the people who are starving in Africa and fucking still die from diarrhea, which is a 100% treatable disease? Mm-hmm. Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like literally you can always take it a step further. There's someone always in a worse situation than you're in, and they can still take advantage of their opportunities to a degree in which that person never would.
100% agree. But my point is, my dad never gave me any money, but that's what's not important, right? Giving someone money does not dictate their success.
Oh, 100% not.
Knowing what to do with it, having a good upbringing, knowing, the principles of finance and having the courage and support to start a business, that's what made me, successful in a certain way, right? 100%. And that's why I'm just infinitely grateful for.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly, bro, like my number one role model is my father. Mm-hmm. And I think like for every great like business person that I see, they all have great fathers.
100%.
To be completely honest with you. Yeah. And like that's why, I'm trying hard to work on myself and make sure that I'll be a good father. That's why I got a dog, raise a little dog, train him.
Being a little parent.
Right, casa and, But no, so that's, yeah.
And I think for the young men out there, in particular, maybe they don't have a father, they grew up without a male role model, find one, find a guy or an older guy that you want to be like, someone you respect, and, try to bring that in your life, right? Because that's super important for development, and it's super important for, just have someone to look up to. And I think that's kind of mutually like a male experience, right? Like I feel like women, they don't have the exact same relationship with like an older woman sometimes, like maybe somewhat, but like having an older guy as like your role model or like influence, I think is more important for young guys to have.
100%.
I feel like that's like a masculine almost like
oh
thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And even I had an idea on that. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Yeah, low-key, yeah.
But like even with like I think young men and an older role model and role models in general and even friends, it's like you can find those in books.
Right.
Like your 5 closest friends can be the 5 authors from the books that you last read. And for me, that was where I was really locking in. Like my 5 best friends for fucking years was Peter Lynch, Warren Buffett, fucking Benjamin Graham, fucking Robert Kiyosaki, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Like literally all these fucking authors, because I'm just literally reading their words, and their words are their thoughts, and their thoughts are what they're thinking and what they're actually like.
Right.
So it's like if you literally surround yourself with these textbooks, you can mold yourself into any person you want to be.
100%. And I think that's a super important point too, is you recognizing that those thoughts and those writings from them reflects their mindset, right?
100%.
People don't understand your brain is your greatest asset. Elon Musk is worth what, 200 billion or it fluctuates up and down from that. But if you think about it, all that came from thoughts in his head.
Exactly.
So his brain, it has to be worth more than that. His mind and his mindset and what he does is worth more than 200 billion or whatever he's worth, because that is what produced that, right?
Exactly.
So that's why, you got to believe in reading books, investing in education, investing in mentors, putting money into your brain and into your mindset is going to actually pay off more, because that's actually your biggest asset.
Yup.
How to Be Rich podcast. That's that name for a reason, man.
Nah, literally, bro. Have you so everyone's heard about the FTX crash, but have you heard of what the founder of FTX has been doing, Sam Bankman-Fried?
I've seen some things, but fill me in.
So basically, you know what this dude was doing with fucking funds? So basically, he robbed the company of like $10 billion to fucking support his other, like, basically company that was going broke or whatever.
Really?
Yep. But essentially, he was out in fucking Puerto Rico or whatever in like some $50 million mansion with all of his fucking coworkers. They were having orgies and shit, fucking spending company funds on fucking yachts and bottles and all sorts of shit.
Yeah. That's what I heard is it wasn't they were a brokerage, right?
Degenerates.
Like people would give them money, right? Exactly. People were giving them money to buy Bitcoin, and they weren't buying that asset exactly.
No.
They were just using that as their personal bank account. That's what I heard,
Bro.
and they fucked off a bunch of money.
Yeah, they had all the money piled into one account, and they just fucking
Jesus.
spend it. Yeah,
That's just insane.
And what's crazy is he hasn't been arrested yet because, dude, he spent like $40 million on lobbying to like fucking Biden or some shit. And bro, it's probably a lot more than that, to be honest
Right.
with you. But so honestly, the fact whether or not he's going to get arrested is still TBD.
Right.
When this is probably the biggest financial scam in
years. It's
history.
been a while.
No, like ever. 10 billion.
That's
like,
a lot. And it's so interesting too, because they were such a leader in that space. They were seen as
Second
one
largest.
of the biggest. They're the second largest, the second big dog, right? Like, it's just so insane that big of a company. And I don't know if you saw this. They hired a guy, I forgot his name, to be the new CEO of it, to kind of guide them through bankruptcy.
Yep.
And he's guided other companies through bankruptcy before as well.
Yep.
And he pretty much looked at their balance sheet and looked at their principles, and he said, "This is the most fucked thing I've ever seen."
Literally,
out of all companies.
this is the biggest scam ever.
Yeah, this is a guy that deals with bankruptcies on
All the time.
a yearly basis, right? That's what he does. And he said, "This is the most fucked balance sheet I've ever seen," right? So
Yeah.
I don't know how they got that big and got to that point before that whole thing crumbled down, but it's absurd, seriously.
Exactly. And I think like the reason why I'm kind of pissed about it is because I feel like people are going to be disinterested in the crypto space as a whole
100%.
for a while now, just because of how, like, literally, if the second largest exchange can collapse,
Yep.
what else can collapse?
And I have a comment on that too. I see Bitcoin and crypto as a technology more than it is a number or how what the price of Bitcoin is, right? You go back to 2000 and 2001 when the .com bubble formed, right? Every single company on their stock chart, they added .com at the end of their company's name. And just because they had a website, there was so much money being funded, there was so much money being over leveraged and thrown into the market. It created this bubble and eventually got popped by bad financials, right? And that's what I see right now that's happening.
Yep.
The underlying market, right, from 2001, the internet was obviously the future, right?
Yep.
The internet was obviously a big thing that everyone's going to use. But because people were just so hyped about it, there was money being thrown around, it created this overinflated industry that eventually crumbled down.
Exactly.
And when it crumbled down, people were saying the same shit they're saying now is,
About crypto.
internet was a scam, or it was just a fad. We don't know if we're going to use that. And I see that right now too. And listen, a lot of people lost a lot of money, and I respect that's fucked, right? But I think that's what we're seeing now is crypto companies going down, big NFT projects going down, big even crypto companies, themselves, like individual
Exchanges,
cryptos.
yep.
Going down themselves, right? Or not even exchanges, but coins.
Sure.
That's what we're seeing right now. A lot of big players folding.
Yep.
But in the next long term, the next 20 years, I think the technology behind it's still solid.
Exactly. And there's fucking facts to back that. It's like if you look at even the US government, they passed a fucking a new fucking plan where every they're gonna push people at the end of 2023, summer of 2023, to have payments be instant. And basically, they're going to be using crypto to make these instant payments. Starlink, they're fucking using cryptocurrencies to secure the transactions in Starlink. And it's like all this shit, you know, Biden's passing all these little plans, and it's all in these fucking 300 long papers that no one fucking reads.
Right.
And it's like, it's already proven that the technology is there and it works. But it's like all this fucking news articles of these scams and shit is just driving the general audience away from it. But I think in this disparity where everyone's fucking afraid of it, but really it works, this is where you make money. Right. It's like buying now. This is 100% where in the long term separates the real investors from the pretend ones.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to say that it's a buy right now necessarily. It could go down more. I don't know which coin's going to do it. All I know is the technology over the long term. I think eventually we're going to implement that into, you know, usage a lot, right?
100%.
And this goes back to it, right? You know, obviously you kind of got your name started off trading stocks or swing trading stocks and investing long term. You talked about reading Peter Lynch and Warren Buffett, a lot of big stock guys.
Yep.
You know, tell the people out there, maybe some people want to do that. You already know my opinion on stock trading. I'm not the biggest fan, but what did you look for when you looked at a company, when you're analyzing these companies, for you to invest your money into them, right? Because if FTX is falling, what do you need to know to ensure a company's success in the future?
100%. So I would say like some of the key things. So I'm a fundamental investor, like doing fundamental analysis.
Yeah.
And Warren Buffett and Peter Lynch are both fundamental analysis investors.
Sure.
And essentially, I would say the three biggest things are the financials, like making sure the company's not in a fucking overrun with debt. And you look at like basic things like PE ratio. It's like, okay, what is the PE ratio of this company relative to other companies in the sector? Is it like, okay, let's say, for example, like Boeing and fucking American Airlines, or compare all these different airlines and their PE ratios. It's like you can get a general sense of which companies are overpriced in that sector relative to other ones. And then there's also things like who's even leading the company? Who are the board of directors? What are their fucking backgrounds? You know, like where do they go to school? What do they do? You know, do they have any competence in even leading the company in the first place? There's lawsuits. You can look at lawsuits on the 10K reports and things like that. Like there's a lot of things you can really dig into, and it's really just how much you really give a fuck. You know what I mean? So you can go. I spent fucking hours like analyzing literally every single stock that I invested into, and I could tell you every single detail about every stock that I've ever invested in. But I think for most people, like they don't give a fuck. They just, it's like someone tells them, buy Tesla.
I remember with you, right?
Yeah.
Looking at, because I tried to do stocks a little bit. I never really got into it seriously at all. I wouldn't say I'm a stock guy whatsoever, but we did invest in stocks a little bit when I was younger, 15, 16.
For sure.
And we'd print out and read 10K reports.
100%.
Right? What percent of, I don't know the number, but what percent of stock traders are looking at 10K reports?
Less than 1%.
Right. 100 page reports of companies.
Exactly.
Detailing their financial models, their marketing plans, their biggest risks. They literally detail, what are the biggest risks to our company? I remember looking at Domino stock, detailing what's the biggest risk to our company. I remember looking at Netflix stocks 3 years ago. The biggest risk of their company was, we're still growing right now, but eventually there's going to be a cap on how many people we can get.
Exactly.
There's a number. And right now, the stock recently dropped because for the first time ever, they stopped growing in terms of their users. I remember reading about that 3 years ago.
They were growing really fast internationally, but now it's like they've literally capped out. Like they have over 200 million fucking, I don't even know the fucking number at this point, but it's ridiculous. But no one will take the time to read a fucking
100%.
10K report.
And here's the thing. People think you need to be an expert on this stuff. Experts write those reports. There's experts, people that are good on it, that give out that information for free, right? And people just don't want to read it.
I think what people also have to understand with stocks is that risk lies in what you do not know. Like if you're willing to put the time, effort, and energy into reading and researching all these facts about the company that you just invested in, you're going to have a one-up on everyone else, because stock investing is really player versus player. You buy something, and it's either you're going to sell it for more than what you bought it for or less than what you bought it for to someone else, right? So it's really just competing against the next guy. And I don't think a lot of people think about it like that.
Right.
So.
And I think that's an interesting take right now, especially going into a recession. What are your thoughts? Obviously, you know, we're technically in a recession right now, 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. People are talking about over the next year to 18 months that it's going to get a lot worse from now.
Sure.
What are your thoughts about it, and how does that relate to stocks even too, right? Like what should people be looking for during a recession?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally like all the signs of recession are here. Like, I mean, obviously the GDP and shit, but even in recessions, like all the best investors and even rich people like Baron Rothschild, which is part of the Rothschilds family, the richest family in the fucking world.
Right.
He said, buy when there's blood in the streets, which basically means that buy when everyone else is fucking panicking and selling and shit, right? When everyone else is super emotional, remain logical and stick to your principles.
Yeah.
And I think right now we've built up our principles to the point where it's like we know what the fuck to do. Like we've already been through a recession during the coronavirus. So, I mean, we know what to do. And I think during the coronavirus, like that was my first recession. I didn't really know what the fuck to do. But now I've learned. And this next one that's coming up, it's already here. It's coming. I'm not going to fuck up.
That's a good point.
I know you're not going to fuck up. We're ready.
Right. And I saw this tweet today. It was said, when there's 20% discounts on Black Friday, everyone goes to Macy's. When there's 20% discounts at a store you see and there's a dress that's 20% off, everyone buys it. There's a 20% discount in the market, in the stock market, everyone runs away, right?
Facts.
And that's how emotional people are with money, right? I told you this story before. When I first got my custodial account, one of the companies I put money into was Netflix.
Yep.
And you look at lists, for blue chip stocks over the last 10 to 15 years, Netflix has been one of the best performers over the long term out of any companies out there. One of the top 10 blue chip stocks for performing over the last 10 years. I managed to lose about 10 to 15%. This is how bad of a stock trader I am, right? That's why I don't do it. Exactly. I managed to lose about 10 to 15% on one of the best stocks of the last 10 years because I got emotional. Because the stock price went down. It went down about 30%. I was nervous. And then it went back up to.
I remember it bounced
20%.
I remember it bounced right back up.
It went back up to 20%, and I was like, "All right, I'll just take the 10% loss. I'll cash out quick. I'll take my eggs while I have them." And listen, if I would have just calmed down, understand markets have cycles, and just relax and hold that for another 2 years, I would have done really well, over 50% returns, right? But that's where personality types and how emotional you are with your money relates a lot to how good you can do with the stock market or investing in general, right?
Exactly.
I think that's something you're good at.
Bro, the markets are cyclical, and I feel like people don't even understand what that means. It's like the weather, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's winter out, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's summer, hot and nice, and everyone wants to go outside and invest in stocks. And sometimes it's winter, it's cold as fuck, your car's freezing, your feet are freezing, you're getting fucking frostbite, and no one wants to go outside. It's literally the same shit with stocks. Sometimes it's a good season to invest in, and sometimes it's no one wants to go outside. And I feel like with cyclical things, the worst thing you can be, how you should not invest in stocks if you're a very emotional person.
100%.
And this is in every single stock fundamental analysis book that I've ever read. People who are extremely emotional, which means you're attached to your money. If you were to lose $10 out of your wallet and you fucking panic and you're about to cry and shit, you should not invest into individual stocks. You should stick to an ETF, buy a bunch of an ETF, delete your fucking stock trading app, and maybe wake up in 10 years and you'll be straight.
Right. Make sure someone else is managing your money for you at
Exactly.
that point, honestly, so you just have no control over it. But that's a really good point.
Literally. And that's probably the thing that separates great investors from everyone else.
From the 90% of traders that lose money.
Right, because 90% of traders, I had to recheck the stat. 90% of traders don't lose money. 90% of traders don't beat the market, right? Which is like the ETFs and the indexes and things like that. I'd even
argue that is losing money. If the S&P 500, the general market, if you could just buy SPY over and over again, if 90% of people are making less than that, you pretty much are losing money based off opportunity cost, right? So, I mean, I would say you pretty much are losing money there.
No, I get what you mean. And I mean, there's inflation too, it's like, how that's being eaten away, but yeah. So what, you're a big real estate guy, I would say. Like, that's probably like like, I see you becoming like a multimillionaire off of real estate alone, to be honest. So
if God intends.
Right. And with real estate, like, what would you, because I know you've done a lot of research into this, and there's some opportunities that are coming up and you're working on. What would you say to the average person that doesn't know much about real estate in terms of how to just even start looking at it, and what are kind of like the opportunities that lie within real estate?
Right, that's a good question. I think obviously the first, like you said, is doing research, right? Reading books, going to people that have already done it and learning from them. Honestly, anything you want to do, right? Whether it's a business, whether it's being a doctor, whether it's investing in real estate, go to someone that's done it and learn from them.
100%.
Not fucking complicated, all right?
For sure.
So find someone that you want to be like, learn from them, all right? Read a book by them. Not hard. First thing that you need to do, and take it seriously as well. Right now, I'm looking into single-family real estate, right? If you go back into 2008, 10, 15 years ago, No one in their right mind besides mom and pop shops would be looking into investing in a single family. There's a real estate report that just came out from JLL, one of the biggest funds in the country and companies in the country. They're buying single family. When I was at St. Thomas University, Durian Companies, one of the biggest places in St. Paul in Minnesota, came out that said they're looking at single family as an investment. Big corporations are looking at single family as investment in real estate, and that's something we haven't seen ever. And I think it's a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't a market for it back then, right? Multifamily was always the biggest thing. There was the most money. It's easiest to scale, and that's what really holding people back. Scaling single family at a large scale, management-wise, is very difficult, right?
How so? Can you break it down?
Well, if you own apartment buildings, right, you can buy a 200-300 unit apartment buildings.
Right.
You can hire a property management team in-house. Maybe there's a full-time maintenance guy. There's a full-time janitor, full-time, maybe 3 or 4 full-time office and leasing agents, right?
Sure.
It's just location-wise, it's all
in one
together.
spot.
It's all in one spot for
Right.
200 to 300 of those units.
Right.
Right? You go into single family, right? Even managing 50 houses spread far away, right? That's 50 different water heaters. That's 50 different AC units. That's 50 different roofs. That's 50 different sidings, right? That's 50 different tenants that are spread away. A location base and just the amount of stuff that's there, it would never make sense. We're going into a new era. That makes sense right now. Prices are going to be good with higher interest rates and people not buying, and prices are going to be good for people that they can't afford to buy homes. More millennials are renting.
100%. And I mean, that's also part of the reason. That's just because house prices are increasing to ridiculous points where people can't afford them.
You're right. People can't afford them. But here's the thing. If you look at inflation, if you look at the sizes of houses, if you take that into account,
Okay.
and if you look at land prices as well, right? Because back in the day, they'd maybe buy a place that was a suburb and now it's become the city, right? Just based on location and expansion.
Yep.
Or maybe it was rural and now it becomes a suburb. If you factor all those prices in, real estate prices have pretty much stayed the same. Right? Houses are bigger now, so they're more expensive. Location has changed based on growing sizes of populations in cities. That's changed. But the overall prices of housing per square foot by year by size has relatively stayed the same. I think it was like a 1.5% increase if you factor inflation on all those factors in, right? And I think it comes down to millennials not working as much and millennials not saving as much money as well.
Do you think right now prices will dip back down, like come back, right? Because I feel like right now prices are a little overinflated, and I see still a lot of construction going on, and I'm pretty sure construction is an indicator of, oversupplying the market, right? In terms of like, okay, a few months from now, right? Now we have a fucking $2 billion construction thing in Highland Park. We have there's construction everywhere, right? Units.
Yeah.
So pretty soon there's going to be an oversupply, right? And then demand's not going to be able to match supply, and then basically supply, and then supply has to come down in order to match demand in terms of pricing.
Sure. I think we obviously saw a lack of supply during COVID just because of construction prices and supply chain issues. Beyond that, we also saw that people were just so eager to buy with interest rates down low.
Yep.
Right? Trump, being a real estate guy himself, of course, he pushed the interest rates as low as possible
Literally.
for himself and other interests.
What a
right?
dog.
Right? It always happens to a certain degree, right? Now Joe Biden was getting money from oil and gas companies and he's raising the price on that, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, every president or politician has private interests. But going back to it, people aren't buying houses as much, right? Millennials aren't buying houses as much. Now with the interest rates being higher, I think I saw a study that a large portion of home buyers are going to wait until interest rates get lower to buy a house. They
Right.
are. Increased supply, right?
Do you think that's the wise thing to do, though?
Yeah, for people buying homes to live in, sure, right? I completely understand. I completely understand why they'd wait. It's not even the wise thing. It's they can't afford it. The mortgage payment with the houses they're looking at they can't afford that anymore with the 7% interest from the 2% interest, right?
Right.
So for investment properties, I'd say that's a little bit different. You should have a different mindset going into that. But for people buying houses to live in, right, the average consumer of single family homes, 100%, it would make sense to maybe wait this out a year or two.
For sure. Yeah. And I think even there's so many options with real estate. Like one of the reasons I like real estate is just because of the creative how creative you can get with it, like in terms of financing even.
100%.
And when recessions come, like sellers are more willing to cooperate and do creative financing deals, and even like 0% down. Oh, you can just take up the mortgage payment,
Right.
and then yada yada yada. Like there's just so many things you can do.
And the 0% down is still very rare. But I mean, going into this, people wanting to sell their homes, we're going to see this that we haven't seen in the last few years. Your home sitting on the market for 3-4 months, right? When home sits on the market for 90 days plus, you look on Zillow or you guys out there trying to invest in properties, you see a home on the market for a long time. Those people are scratching their necks, sweating to try to sell their home. They're getting desperate, right? So
sure.
That's where seller financing or lowballing and getting a really good deal on a home is going to become more prevalent. And for people with no money wanting to get into real estate and wanting to get rich during this recession, I think that's a huge opportunity, right? Wholesaling is going to go away to a certain degree, right?
You think so?
Again, flipping a house right now. A lot of people, big house flipping companies, are going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? They're buying a house for this. They're going to fix it up for this much money and hopefully sell it, right? When the market's going down, the price that they can sell it for after is going nothing but down, right?
They're fucked.
If it goes down fast enough, I'm not saying they're necessarily fucked.
Nah, they're fucked.
Some people will definitely be fucked, right?
Right.
If the aftermarket value, if that goes down enough, house flippers are going to lose a lot of money, right? And people investing and paying cash with wholesalers, that's who's buying them. And if those people stop buying, you can't really make money in that within this turmoil in the market. So
100%. So even like I feel like this type of conversation is a high level conversation that a lot of people won't necessarily be able to follow. Like the person who knows nothing about nothing, won't be able to follow this conversation. So even just what would you say are some books, YouTube videos, YouTube content creators would you say that you look up to and have helped you to become as educated as you are today?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it's obviously important for people. I think books are your number one way to go. I think people have shit on books for the last year. They say that, it's too slow, or we should be looking at YouTube videos and they can give the same information as books.
Hell no.
When you read books, your brain intakes information in a different way than when you watch a video, right? When you read text and then speak in your mind and you read that book for hours and hours, you retain that information better, right?
Yep.
So I think obviously anyway, for financial literacy or for real estate in general, the gateway drug to that is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'd recommend there.
For sure.
Going on from that, there's a lot of real estate books that are good. I think Robert Kiyosaki has a kind of line, like the Rich Dad line. I've read a few of those.
I even read Rental Property Investing by Brandon Turner, and he has like another series too that is really good.
And I don't know the exact name, but we can clip it here. I think it's How to Get Rich in Real Estate, something like that. It actually has Robert Kiyosaki was a co-author in terms of that, and it has another guy. He's actually a British guy that did really well in commercial property that talks about that. He wrote part of that book as well. I follow him. I'll tag him here as well too. I follow him on TikTok and other social media platforms.
Sure.
But other than that, there's other people I look up to. Invest with Ace, right?
Okay.
This guy on TikTok. This guy is for real estate investing, most realistic by far for any creator. A lot of people flex their Lambos, they flex their buying big deals, they just tell you what they're doing. For actually breaking down a property and doing day-to-day stuff that real estate investors do, Invest with Ace is by far the most realistic and provides the most value. All right. I worked with people in property management, they had thousands of units, and they'd even talk about, oh yeah, this guy's legit, right? He breaks down the spreadsheets, he breaks down the properties he looks at, he breaks down the locations he looks at in such detail, and people look, you sleep on him because his videos might not have as much shock value or entertaining stuff as other creators.
Of course.
I can't recommend him enough. Other thing too, Grant Cardone. A lot of people hate on him.
Literally about to ask you about.
A lot of people hate on him because guess what? A lot of what he does is promotion. A lot he does was brand building. He does a lot of flexing. But here's what you do. Go to Grant Cardone's YouTube channel and look at any video longer than an hour. Any video where he's talking for longer than an hour. There's videos, or his Monday podcast, where people call in and say, hey, this is the address. He looks up the address and explains the deal, why it would be a good or bad deal.
Right.
And I think if you dig deeper beyond the bullshit, because he does have marketing bullshit. If you dig beyond the Grant Cardone marketing bullshit, there's value that he provides that you need to learn.
Let me say something about Grant Cardone real quick. Bro, I So Grant Cardone has a REIT, right, which is a real estate investment trust, right? So basically, you pour money into this trust, and then he uses that money to go out and find deals, and then through these deals, he sends you like a monthly check for X amount of dollars, whatever, right, depending on how much you invest. And once I fucking signed up for that, because I was like, oh wow, Grant Cardone, he's gonna get some good deals, bro. The number of emails I get, the number of phone calls I get. I was about to fucking call this dude, pull up to his crib, with like no, I'm kidding. But like, like it's insane. And I feel like he also charges like thousands of dollars for even like a 30-minute phone call or some shit. Because I remember seeing this TikTok where it's like this dude paid fucking Grant Cardone like $100K to talk to him for fucking 2 hours and discuss business fucking ideas with him or some shit. And I'm like, dude, you could have learned all that shit from a fucking YouTube video, and this dude charged you like $100K. So even with people like that, like something inside of my spirit and my soul tells me that he's not actually like that. He's not really about it. Like, I don't know how much, because if I think about people like this, other content creators, right, being in this space, it's like what percent of their money was made from what they actually say they're doing, and what percent of 100%. It was made off of telling people that they do what they do and selling the idea of that.
Here's my bounce off of that. This is something I believe. You should watch what people do, not listen to what they say. Grant Cardone is a master marketer. He's been in sales for over 20 years, and he's obviously been really successful in real estate. And you can apply this to a lot of people. Do what they did. Don't do what they tell you to do. Grant Cardone will tell you, you shouldn't get into real estate until it's a big deal. You shouldn't buy real estate. You should think big and buy a big investment property and see if you can do a 100-unit property before you have any money.
Okay, but
if you look at what he did, he bought a single-family home as his first investment. He started small and worked his way up, right? He'll tell you, oh, you need to buy this mastermind and do this and that. He started off in sales, right? I think if you look at a lot of different people, listen to look at what they've actually done versus what they actually say. Going back to Andrew Tate, he sells Hustler University. He teaches people how to copyright.
Sure.
He's never made a fucking dollar off of copywriting.
Sure.
He made money off of marketing himself, being controversial, and pushing content. I look at Andrew Tate. I want to do what he did, not what he tells me to do.
Okay, but here's my backlash to that. When's the last time you seen a fucking Grant Cardone video pop up on your TikTok?
I follow him, so yeah, I follow him.
Oh, okay. But for me, it's been months, a long ass time, and I feel like that's because part of him is like it's inauthentic, and that shows over time. I feel like being inauthentic, like it just, even if you're not, nothing clearly is demonstrating that you're not being authentic and true to yourself and what 100%. You're actually doing. I feel like that still shows through. Like people can get a sense of that.
I agree. I think that people can smell bullshit. Right?
100%.
If you're really trying to sell them bullshit, people can sense that. And again, I'll totally admit, him especially, he has a lot of crap that you have to dig through. But I think if you dig far enough, you can find some content that he puts out that is actually helpful.
Some value, yeah.
Right.
And that's almost with anyone you could probably argue. But yeah, he does have good content. I know the type of videos you're talking about, like the long ones where he goes and breaks down deals where people call in and all that. And
going back to it, talking about how people don't need to be smart to get rich. He's a person that, listening to him, he doesn't listen. He doesn't strike me as a super
IQ probably like 120. Yeah.
He doesn't strike me as like a super intelligent guy, right? But he takes risks. He's a big marketer. He'll talk about he'll talk about himself. He'll do big action, and he's created, billions of dollars in a massive company, multiple massive companies, just based off that, right? So that goes back to like limiting beliefs, and people need to understand that they can do what they do.
Okay, one more thing though. I don't like the comparison of Andrew Tate and Grant Cardone though. Although they're selling two kind of like things, I know Grant Cardone is kind of selling his one-on-one like fucking $100,000 2-hour phone calls, and Andrew Tate selling his $50 Hustler University. I feel like with Andrew Tate it's more authentic, and with Grant Cardone it's like he says the same shit on repeat. I feel like it's like listening to a commercial. It's like,
I disagree with that. First of all, I think you could argue that Andrew Tate says the same thing. Andrew Tate says the same thing on repeat as well. But I'll say this, even. Andrew Tate has made all of his money off profiting off dumb people, right? You look at his business ventures. You look at originally with the cam business and talking to girls over camera. It's dumb people that are willing to give thousands of dollars to girls on the internet. That's profiting off of not very smart people. he had a venture of doing casinos in Romania. That's profiting off people that are dumb enough to go to casinos. Now he's profiting off the War Room and Hustlers University. He's profiting off of people that are dumb enough to pay him $50 a month, and the War Room, which is $5,000 with one payment. He's profiting off of people that are willing to give those money to him without, I'm not saying it's not any value, but they're paying for a product that's not going to actually change their lives, right? And I think over his career, he's profited off of people that make bad decisions.
I get what you're saying, but even with Hustlers University, because I bought it, like I paid
to do the review on it.
To do the review, right? The $50 a month. I think it's similar to what you said about Grant Cardone. It's like if you dig deep enough, you can find value.
I'm not saying there's no value on it, but again, you know, are you really teaching all these people just to copyright and to make money off it, right? Like, I haven't bought it personally, but again, I don't think it's the best. I wouldn't recommend that to someone. If they're going to ask me, should I buy it? I would say probably not.
For sure.
You know?
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend necessarily to buy it too, just because all the information can be found for free.
Exactly.
Yeah. But even with like courses and things, my perspective on this stuff is slightly shifted. I think courses lay out information more unilaterally, like it's all in one place rather than having to scroll through a bunch of different YouTube videos and search for the shit.
I think there's good courses out there, 100%.
Right.
I'm just saying most of them probably aren't something you should buy.
Yeah. I mean, it's just self-aware, like how much is your time worth type thing.
100%.
But yeah. Bro, what do you think about Fresh and Fit? I'm actually genuinely curious to see what do you think about them?
So Fresh and Fit's kind of in like the alpha male scape of the podcast, right?
Yeah, like red pill masculinity.
Yeah, red pill masculinity. And, you know, I think there's aspects of that are very good, right? I think anytime you're teaching young men to be responsible about themselves, to be motivated and to work to better themselves, that's a good thing. But there's also other things that I really don't like about that, right? The biggest being, I'll let you make a comment in a second. The biggest being is a lot of those guys talk about women way too much, right? They're talking about you should be the best man so you can get multiple women, and you got to do this to get girls, and actually doing this, girls like this better, they don't like that. I don't think about women that much, right? I date women.
Literally. I'm
not obsessing over what do girls like? Why do I get laid more? How do I like? I'm not obsessing over that.
Bro,
like a lot of these red pill guys are, right? And I think that is kind of like exposing an insecurity they have.
100%.
Of never really getting that.
Wow. It's crazy how you just fucking broke that down, because I saw a TikTok today where like Fresh, I don't even know the difference between Fresh and Fit. I'm gonna be honest, but Fresh, the tall, they're both bald, but whatever. He was like, I don't like ratchet bitches. I'm on Rumble, so I can say this. I hate ratchet bitches. Like if you say period, that just makes me think you're gonna steal some in my crib, which is like, okay.
That's kind of funny.
Right, it's funny, yeah. Right? But he wasn't fucking joking.
Right, yeah.
That's the thing. And it's like, bro, I feel like with people like that, it's like you said, it's like they really, you know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like they really don't have like game, to be honest. Like I wouldn't take advice from them on how to get girls.
Right. And like the whole thing goes back to, it's like if you're doing everything just to get girls, like that's a sad life, right? The meaning of life is to not chase women, or even if you're a girl, the meaning of life is not to like get guys or chase guys, right? Finding your own purpose, you should be doing that to fulfill your own needs and to find happiness and a greater purpose beyond yourself. That should not be like some outside success factor of like getting women. Like I just think that whole concept is really dumb.
Yeah,
you know?
And I think through finding your best self and becoming who you truly are meant to be, like all that other stuff falls into place.
It will. That's the exact point. It will happen inevitably, right?
Exactly.
You don't need to focus on that so much. And I think, I mean, obviously that audience has attracted a type of guy that, you know, has become more and more prevalent, especially on the internet, right? Guys that are like down bad and trying to get that. And I have respect for that. Guys that are really down bad trying to get women and they need someone to teach them. Sure. You know,
yeah. I feel like it's almost going too far in the opposite direction though, bro. It's like first it was like massive feminine wave, like blue hair people, like just, you know what I'm saying? Like
Lizzo.
Fuck men ain't shit. We don't need men, all this shit. Yep. And then now it's like other way, like, man, these women, you know what I'm saying? It's
fuck Western women. Yeah.
How to like just fucking hit and leave. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's like, I feel like with the man, it's like you got to understand that one, your fucking goal in life should not be to rack up as many bodies as possible.
I do.
Because, bro, for me personally, I don't know about other people, but this is just for me. I don't like to exchange my energy with just fucking
100%.
anybody. You know what I mean? Like, energy exchange is real. Like, first of all, I would never want to exchange energy with someone who would not want to exchange energy with me, or who doesn't even like me. You know what I mean? Because that's just bad karma. That's just fucking up my whole circadian rhythm and shit. And I think the next thing is your energy's sacred. And if you don't understand that intimacy, having sexual
100%.
intimacy with people, that's a big
I was
energy
gonna say,
exchange.
the sex, the most important thing about that is about intimacy, right? Like, people shit on like the religious belief of, oh, you know, you gotta have to wait until marriage for sex, or like, or you have to like, you know, save that for one person. I don't personally believe in that, but I do believe that sex is important. It's about how people bond together, right? It's the most intimate thing you can do. And people making this all loosey goosey, right? Sleep with whoever you want. You're the big dog if you do it. I get if you want to sleep with multiple women or a lot of women, but like, low key sleeping with a lot of girls, that's kind of nasty, bro. Like, you're kind of playing Russian roulette with your dick, or about like who you put it in, right? That's fucked.
And to bounce off on that too, I feel like pulling girls when it was extremely difficult to pull girls, like maybe like fucking 300 years ago, like that's maybe a bit different than it is now. Now it's like a societal norm to like be a thought.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's the proper way to say that, but like
Yeah, people are more loose with their sexuality.
100%.
That's a fair thing to say. you
Yeah,
know?
and I feel like pretty soon here, right? It's like everything comes in cycles. It's like, okay, now everyone, you know, now it's easy to just fuck whoever you want, and you can fuck whoever you want at any time of the day. Now I feel like it's going to become a thing where it's like, is that what you want? Like,
Right.
is that what's right? Like, people are actually going to start thinking about this shit again.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, right? I recently talked to a woman, and she asked me what I did for fun, right? And I said, yeah, you know, I love fitness. I play sports with friends, right? You know, I like playing chess with my friends. You know, obviously I
Right.
work. And I told her, yeah, no, I like going out on weekends too. Sometimes I go out, you know, have a few drinks with the boys, go to a club or whatever. And then I asked her, you know, what do you do for fun? And she said, you know what, I like cooking. I like staying with family, and you know, and she was like, long term, I want to pride myself on being a really good mother, right?
Go
And
on.
listen.
Come here.
People can do whatever they want. We can be more sexually liberated as a society, but long term, those are the people that are gonna win, right?
Exactly.
Guys that are like family oriented and willing to provide are gonna win, and women that are like family oriented and say, you know, I want to invest into a family, those people are gonna win too.
And bro, I think humans, we're creators. Like, having that type of mindset is in sync with what you naturally are as a human being.
100%.
Like, you look at all this shit around us, this microphone, this fucking stand, this couch. This was all invented and created by a person. And even having the base desire to procreate with a person and have a child and even raise a child, like, that's natural. That's what
Right.
is meant to. That's how it's kind of meant to be. As people, we're creators. And even if it's like creating content or some shit, it's like constantly creating things, constantly putting shit out there, and, you know, just discovering new things is how we're naturally meant to be.
Right.
Versus just like
Yeah.
fucking just to fuck.
Yeah, so for sure. Even on that note, I've seen, like, if you look at older guys or men in general, I think there's a weird, like, internal urge to, like, try to help or, like, benefit society, right?
100%.
I saw this video. It's this common thing in Italy of old men, retired age men, to look at construction sites and give advice. Like, they just like sitting all day looking at construction sites, people building things, and probably giving unwanted advice that no one's gonna fucking use. But the point being is, there's some internal urge, I think, for all humans, but especially, you know, men in a certain way, of like, how can we help society? How can
Exactly.
we move things forward and help the general public, right? And it's just this really weird thing that has probably built society, you know, over the long term, right? Of like, it's been ingrained to, you know, how can we help the general public? And I think people need to tap into, and I think that's a big part of happiness as well.
100%. And I feel like that all ties back into the mindset of just constantly seeking and wanting to discover new things and new ideas. Like, for me, one thing recently that I've been really, really in deep about is go on Netflix and search up Ancient Apocalypse. The Ancient Apocalypse. It literally talks about how everything we know about history is basically wrong past 6,000 years ago. And that shit is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what happened? You know, what were people like even 10,000 years ago? And even though that's just like, okay, it's like, oh, we thought we were caveman, maybe we're not. Who really gives a fuck? But it's like understanding what we were like prior to 6,000 years ago, prior to the caveman,
Mm-hmm.
that can help us know who we are now and what we're supposed to become.
Right. And I've heard this quote. People say history repeats itself. I had a quote that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Right.
Bars.
So history it'll never be exactly the same, but the lessons or problems that we endure will always be somewhat related to things that have already happened. Right. So I think that's why, teaching history in schools or people understanding history to a certain degree is important for, young people to understand.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the How to Be Rich podcast. Rich in health, wealth, and everything else dealing with the self.
Boss talk.
Boss talk.
It was good to have
New
you, man.
Tangent. We'll be back next week. Thanks, Walter, for coming on.
Hey, thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
And peace out, y'all.
Adios.